In episode 3 of The Real Housewives of Miami season 7, things went from dramatic to downright chaotic. What started with a sweet surprise wedding for Marysol and Steve quickly spiraled into emotional breakdowns, shocking confrontations, and accusations that had fans picking their jaws up off the floor. Titled Worst Wedding Ever, the episode lived up to its name, not because of Marysol's marriage, but because of what went down between the ladies at the celebration. First off, Lisa Hochstein was going through one of the hardest moments of her life. When Alexia reached out to invite her to Marysol's surprise wedding party, Lisa was out of town in Canada dealing with the death of her father. She sadly revealed that she didn't get a final moment with him before he passed because he was unconscious. In a deeply emotional scene, Lisa opened up to her boyfriend Jody about wanting to speak at her father's funeral. She acknowledged that while her childhood was far from perfect and her dad struggled with alcoholism, she still wished she had more time with him. Her confessional moments were raw and painful as she admitted that by the time she was finally ready to reconnect with her father, it was already too late. While Lisa was dealing with personal grief, Marysol and Steve were focused on tying the knot again. This time it was legal. They had already had previous ceremonies in Mexico and Scotland, but now they wanted to make things official. Marysol joked that the decision was partly about finances and having legal rights to each other's stuff. Despite the jokes, she was teary-eyed when she talked about Steve in her confessional, calling him the best thing that ever happened to her. The couple rode off on Steve's motorcycle to the courthouse, where Marysol wore a chic white mini dress, a short veil, and a bracelet that belonged to her late mom, Mama Elsa. The love was real, and this moment, though short, was one of the few peaceful ones in the episode. But the real tension began brewing between Adriana and Julia. The longtime friends had a heartfelt but uncomfortable conversation when Adriana expressed that she felt left out and hurt after hearing about Julia and Martina's adoption of 2 boys from someone else. Adriana had supported Julia through the entire adoption process, so she was shocked that Alexia saw the kids before she even knew they had arrived. Julia admitted she should have told Adriana sooner, but the damage was clearly done. Adriana confessed in her confessional that she felt the growing distance was partly because of Julia's closer relationship with Alexia and Marysol. However, wanting to mend things, Adriana offered to host a baby shower for the kids, and Julia accepted, showing a glimmer of reconciliation. Meanwhile, things were anything but calm between Julia and Guerdy. The drama started when Kiki told Guerdy that Julia had been talking about her and that some of the other ladies thought Guerdy was too much, or extra. Guerdy didn't take the news lightly, especially when Julia's cruise behavior came up again. According to Julia, Guerdy made their cruise all about herself, taking selfies, networking, and seemingly ignoring Julia and her emotional state regarding Martina's health. Julia complained that Guerdy never once asked how she or Martina were doing. This story clashed hard with Guerdy's version of events. Guerdy said Julia begged her to join the cruise for emotional support and painted Julia as manipulative and two-faced. The battle reached its peak during Marysol's wedding celebration where all the women had gathered. Guerdy and Julia finally faced off in front of everyone, and it was anything but civil. Guerdy tried to approach things calmly, but Julia immediately lashed out, accusing Guerdy of being a fake friend and yelling over her. Guerdy called Julia an animal and a hyena, to which Julia proudly replied, "I am a hyena." Things went downhill fast. The ladies were yelling, pointing fingers, and it all ended with Julia throwing her drink right in Guerdy's face. That shocking moment left everyone stunned. Guerdy didn't back down, though. Even while dripping with wine, she clapped back hard, saying Julia was trying to spin the situation when the real issue was her abandoning Martina while she was battling cancer. Julia shot back that she never invited Guerdy and that it was Guerdy's idea to replace Martina on the cruise. Guerdy then dropped a massive bombshell. Julia had gotten a facelift while Martina was in New York undergoing chemotherapy. This accusation silenced the room. Julia, clearly rattled, told Guerdy not to deflect, but the damage was done. Even though Julia claimed Guerdy's words were cruel and embarrassing, especially in front of Marysol, she didn't seem to take responsibility for her part in escalating things. Her confessional was filled with more frustration about being pushed to that level by Guerdy, rather than any self-reflection. Guerdy, on the other hand, made it clear that she didn't feel bad about confronting Julia and that she was just trying to clear her name. As if that drama wasn't enough, Larsa stirred up even more tension by bringing up Lisa's boyfriend Jody during the party. According to Larsa, while they were in Milan, Jody had a total meltdown and started yelling, making things awkward. She even showed a photo of his eyes to suggest something might have been going on with him, possibly even hinting at drug use. But the rest of the women didn't buy it. They all agreed that his eyes looked normal, and her theory flopped. Then Larsa added that Jody being present on all of Lisa's business calls was suspicious and told Lisa directly that she thought Jody was bad news. Alexia thought it was extremely unfair for Larsa to say all of this while Lisa was absent and grieving. Even for Larsa, it felt like a harsh and unnecessary attack. Back at the party, emotions were running high. Julia told everyone that Martina had gone through a biopsy, and the emotional weight of that situation seemed to get lost in the chaos. Guerdy calmly responded to being called a liar and didn't back down. When Julia told her to stay out of her family matters, Guerdy reminded her that she invited her into it by asking her to join the cruise. The two kept clashing with neither willing to back off. In the final scenes of the episode, the division between Julia and Guerdy was still raw and unresolved. The wedding celebration was totally overshadowed by their fight. Adriana and Julia's friendship also remained fragile. Lisa, though not physically present, was emotionally present throughout the episode with her vulnerable confessional about her father. Marysol, despite her own health scare, and her black eye patch with a $sign, tried to keep the good vibes going. But honestly, this group is just one spark away from exploding every time they're in the same room. The third episode of Season 7 made one thing clear: the Real Housewives of Miami isn't pulling any punches this season. Between Lisa's heartbreaking family loss, the deep rift between Guerdy and Julia, and Larsa stirring the pot from afar, the tension is off the charts. This episode was packed with so much drama, emotion, and wine-throwing it's impossible to look away. As the season continues, it's clear that alliances will shift, friendships will be tested, and some bridges might be burned for good.